Chunk.
Or Charles. Then if there's people who join the webinar on Zoom, they would assume that. I just want to make sure. YouTube, you're good.
Okay, sorry about that.
That's quite all right. All right, so we'll call the work session to order. Would you mind doing a roll call vote for us?
Yes, Supervisor Lewis,
Present.
Supervisor Day, Supervisor Ayers,
Here.
Supervisor Lyons,
Here.
and Chairman McDaniel.
Here. I apologize for being late, but we'll go ahead and get started.
That's okay, David. I've never been late.
I think everybody knows, but our community, our work family has experienced significant loss over the last week or so with the Witten family and with the Burke family. And before we get started with our work session, I just ask for a moment of silence. Thank you. We'll have a little bit more to say at the beginning of our regular session as well. All right, now we have a review of the Vdot 6-year plan. Mr. Suter.
Yes, annually, Ms. Hammond comes in April to review the current 6-year plan and receive thoughts and ideas on the upcoming FY23 plan. Annual adoption of the 6-year plan requires a joint public hearing by Vdot and the Board of Supervisors. Our typical process is to review the plan in a work session such as this and schedule the public hearing approximately 30 days later. In that way, should the board wish to have additional follow-up discussion, it can be scheduled for the next regular meeting after the work session. So in 2 weeks. The standard documents are included in your agenda package. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Hammond to review with you. I will note that after last year's adoption, I did create a log of road improvement requests that have come in either by the board or by citizens in the order received. But I think you're going to hear in a little bit, due to the increasing cost of the current projects, there's not a lot of money to be had to add anything. But with that, I'm going to try to share my screen so that she can go over this with you.
Hopefully you can hear me. Am I close enough?
Let me adjust you here a little bit. Okay.
All right. As Spencer said, we have the same news to continue from last year, which is that materials prices have continued to escalate. Last year, we had an increase in our about average across the board, close to 30% increase in stone costs for any of the roadways that we're building. And this year, we've had an increase of about 300% in cross pipes. So we went from being able to, in some cases, it's more than 300%, depending on the diameter of the pipe. So you can imagine that has really, we had to go back and evaluate each one of our projects because we want to make sure that the budget that's in there is appropriate to cover the work that needs to be done. And so the first thing that we did when our program was open to look at this along with the new allocation was to go back and make sure that the estimates that we have in here for each of the projects are accurate. They're accurate based on the dollar value that we know things are going to cost today. So after we did that, there's not a lot of extra money to spread around to actually have a meaningful start on another project. So I do anticipate that next year we'll be able to do that. But this year, you know, you guys have run a really tight ship with your program, and we've been able to keep projects moving along at a reasonable pace and not have money sitting around. And so hopefully that you will see reflected in this the same kind of decision making to have an effective program and be able to get things accomplished. I didn't want to add projects in there without having the existing projects in the priority that they're listed already funded and ready to go. So we'll start with the front page. Can you back up a slide? Just there you go, right there. Just to see that we have two funding sources that each of these projects get funded under. One of those is the telefees, which is a dollar value that's collected within the county for utilities that are installed within the state right of way. It is required to come back to the locality. So in general, it's pretty consistent revenue, but also you'll see that it only is about $65,000 a year. The next line item is the district grant unpaved roads. And this is where the largest chunk of your money is. On average, it ranges anywhere from 416,000 up to a high of 447. But then it does taper off a little bit, leaving your total 6-year program with both dollar values of being at a little over $3 million. So the first project that you have is one that's under construction right now, and that is the Route 606 project. That's the Smart Scale project. That has a fixed completion date and should be finished in October, by October 28th of this year. We're keeping our fingers crossed that will actually be completed sooner. But a very good project, and appreciate the county's application for Smart Scale to improve that area. The next project is Rocky Hollow. That project is under construction and should be completed in the next 2 weeks. We have a couple program issues that it's not cooperating when we mark a project that's been complete to be taken out to show that it's been finalized. So we have a couple of them in here. Gilmer Lane is one that was completed in 2020. So even though that's showing up as a line item in your project, it is completed and it does not have any additional allocation on it. And I'm going to do my best to try to have these resolved by the time that we go to public hearing, but I will do my best. I can't make you a promise that it will be done. This is an old program that's being used, and we've had this project marked for deletion since it was completed, and it still keeps popping up when we pull a report. So the next project is Old Chapel Road. That's another one that was completed in October of 21. Allen Springs Road, that was completed in June of 2020. Anderson Farm Road is under construction, and that should be completed this fall. The next project is Bird Forest Road. That is under construction as well and will be completed this fall. And Snakefoot Lane is also under construction and should be completed this fall. Now, upcoming projects that you have, we have Eastfield Road. That all of these, with the exception of the very first project that I was reading off, I apologize, are rural rustic projects. And those projects allow us to do some improvements on the road without meeting a full construction standard. And it allows us to improve the surface and improve the roadway. Most of these, excuse me, have 30-foot prescriptive right of way. And by being able to work within those limits, it does help us keep project costs down considerably, especially since the majority of the projects that are in here are projects that are within a relatively low traffic volume, and we're not anticipating any additional development. So my apologies, I should have gone through that first. Field Road, again, is a rural rustic project. It's from the intersection of the south intersection of Route 602 for 1.2 miles north of the intersection of 602. That's a distance of 1.2 miles. That will be funded in 2024. The next project is Union Run, Route 674, from 0.44 miles north of the intersection of Route 687 to 0.22 miles south of the intersection of 670. It's a distance of 1.2 miles. And that one is fully funded. That date on there that says 8/12 of 2025, it's actually fiscal year 2023. Next project is Jacob's Ladder, Route 701. It's from 0.1 miles north of the intersection of 671 to 0.15 miles south of the intersection of Route 11 for a distance of 0.8 miles. And again, that one is in fiscal year 2024. And you'll start seeing from about Jacob's Ladder on the impact to the increases that we saw both last year and this year as far as the adjustment in these project schedules. The next project is Miller Burke Memorial Highway, Route 601. It is 0.67 miles north of the intersection of 615 to 0.1 miles north of the intersection of Route 614. It's a distance of 1.8 miles. And that one will be funded in fiscal year 25.
So is that, I'm reading dates that are, you're saying dates that are different than. on
That's
here.
correct. That is one of the adjustments that I hope to have corrected when we get to the public hearing,
Okay.
in advance of the public hearing, I should say. The next project is Little Dry Hollow, Route 659. That is from the intersection, the north intersection of 644 to the south intersection of 644 for a distance of 3 miles. As of right now, that's going to hold the date of fiscal year 2025. Hollow Rock Road, Route 644 is from the end of state maintenance to the intersection of Route 631 for a distance of 0.8 miles. And that one is also going to hold the date of fiscal year 24. The next project is Green Hill Road, Route 657. It is from 1.84 miles northwest of the intersection of Route 655 to 2.14 miles northwest of the intersection of 655 for a distance of 0.3 miles. Again, will be in fiscal year 24. The next project is Weedarnock Way. That is Route 673. This project goes from the intersection of Route 672 to the intersection of Route 641 for a distance of 0.9 miles. And again, anticipate being funded in fiscal year 24. The next project is Sunnybrook Road, Route 715. And this is from the intersection of Route 11 to the intersection of 712 for a distance of 1.7 miles. This is where we start creeping to the outer edges of your plan, and this one is set up for fiscal year 28. Next project is Fredericksburg Road, Route 623. This project goes from the intersection of Route 621 to the intersection of Farmhouse Road, and I'm missing a route number in that one, for a distance of 2.7 miles, and it's showing out into fiscal year 2028. Now, the next set of projects that you have are countywide. They're not specific to an individual project. We try to keep a little bit of money in each one of those, just so that if we have a project that say we need to do some investigation on to see if it's worth moving forward with, we can charge to this. We also have some traffic services if we have to do Sometimes if we need a speed study or something like that, we can, or some unusual signing, we can take care of it with this. We also keep a small amount of money in the fertilization and seeding and in the county right-of-way engineering. And the legacy formula line is showing up in your plan, but it does not have any allocation on it. So the not applicable is appropriate, but for some reason it's still showing up on your plan, but there's no dollar value that's associated with that. The second attachment that you have is if you want to delve a little bit deeper into each one of the individual projects, you can see how the funding distribution occurs throughout the 6-year plan. Normally, I don't go over that, but if you'd like me to, I can. Okay.
No, we just need more of it.
Yes. Actually, we need for materials to not cost as much, one of the two. Either way, we would get more projects in your plan. So is there any questions? I'll do my best to answer them tonight, but if I can't, I'll be happy to follow up.
Board have any questions?
Not that, it sounds like there's not the ability to add this year, but I can review the quick list of the ones to make sure that I've got the ones that you all have been hearing about and on my list that I'm tracking. If you want me to.
Please.
I've got Adair Hill Drive, Round Hill Road. Not, there's just pieces of some of these. McElwee Road and Stillhouse Drive are the ones that I have listed so far. And I'm happy to, as we're focused on this the next month till up to public hearing, if there are any other thoughts or whatever to kind of add in for consideration in the future year, or at any time through the year, I'm happy to add this. I'm keeping a running list. Or add to this.
I'll get with you after. I've got several that I've been working with Ms. Hammond on for years that aren't on that list. So I'll bring those to your attention.
Okay.
The reason I say that is, and I can't remember if she mentioned it on the qualifications for the rural rustic, but there's traffic count. So you never can be sure. I don't bring them forward if I don't have the traffic count to support. That doesn't mean that citizens haven't made comments.
Well, and thank you for that. Let me clarify. None of these have had traffic
Right.
counts. These would all need to be studied to see to confirm eligibility first. But if there are any, like you say, that you've got, I'm happy to get them in here for study.
I will.
I guess the last thing that I have is just to give enough time so that we have, we can appropriately advertise for a public hearing. We need to have it posted for 2 weeks. So I would just ask for the board's consideration of the May 23rd meeting as that date for the public hearing.
And I've, just following protocol, I've got that on the regular agenda for you all to consider that regular agenda.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Again, I apologize for my being late.
Thank you, Ms. Hammond.
It's okay. I understand things happen.
He was in traffic.
Not mine, right?
Well, it was construction. Is there anything else, Mr. Sue, that you have as far as the work session?
No, sir.
Does the board have any more comments, questions, anything with the Vdot 6-year plan? Certainly, I would echo the thoughts of Mr. Suter. If you have a road that you want to be considered, let's get it on his list and communicate with him. We'll get on the list. We'll check with Ms. Hammond to see what we can do on that front. All right, at this time, we will end the work session, and we will reconvene at 5:30 for our regular scheduled meeting. Okay, we will call the April 25th, 2022 Board of Supervisors meeting to order. As you may be aware, we just concluded a work session where we had a moment of silence at the beginning for some special people within our community and our work family. We'll begin this meeting in the same manner. As you may know or be aware, Brandy Whitten and her family experienced an incredible loss to her family over the weekend with her daughter, and which was also the granddaughter of Gary and Mary Cotty, Brandy's parents, who have worked in the building for many years. We just want to make sure that our thoughts and prayers are with the family. The outpouring of support from the community is sustaining the family as they cope with this great loss. Additionally, on April 14th, we lost a community leader and entrepreneur in Bobby Burke. His life left an incredible mark on the county, and his hard work made many in our community better off. Additional recognition for his many years of service is planned for a future meeting. Please now join me in standing for a moment of silence as we remember these special people and support their families in the time of need. Thank you. We will now continue with our meeting. Mr. Suter, would you do a roll call for us?
Supervisor Lewis,
Present.
Supervisor Day,
Here.
Vice Chair Ayers,
Here.
Supervisor Lyons.
Here.
And Chairman McDaniel.
Here. We will now have a prayer for the board followed by a pledge of allegiance. Those are attending are not required to participate. If you'd like to join us, please stand.
Lord, we are here today with heavy hearts. We pray for the Whitten family and for the Burke family, asking that you'll give them comfort and peace now and the days ahead. And now we ask that you be with this board as we make decisions for our county. Lord, guide, guard, and forgive us. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will do our best to take citizen comments and public hearing comments remotely. There are two options for citizens to offer a comment. To join by telephone, you may dial into one of the numbers listed on the county website. The webinar ID and password are there for your convenience. Citizens wishing to simply view the meeting live or after the fact can do so in the Rockridge County Board of Supervisors YouTube channel, also available on the county website. If you wish to make a citizen comment as a Zoom meeting participant, you will use the raise your hand feature. You can press the raise your hand button at the bottom of the Zoom window or press *9 if you're calling in by telephone. At this time, are there any changes to the agenda?
I have none.
We do have a few recognitions and presentations tonight. We have a resolution supporting the Natural Bridge State Park's dark sky application.
Happy to read that. Whereas Natural Bridge State Park's mission is to ensure the protection of the bridge for the Commonwealth's natural, historic, recreational, scenic, and cultural resources. And whereas the night sky, like forests, wildlife, soils, and water, is a natural resource that should be protected for future generations to experience and enjoy. And whereas the park enjoys a nighttime environment that is minimally impacted by light pollution and has exemplary nighttime lightscapes. And whereas the park offers ample opportunities for public observation of our night skies, including supervised activities such as stargazing events put on by local astronomy groups and astronomy and dark sky related interpretive programming throughout the year. And whereas Natural Bridge State Park was designated as Virginia's 5th International Dark Sky Park on April 7th, 2021. And whereas Virginia now has the most dark sky places east of the Mississippi River, And whereas the International Dark Sky Association designates April 22nd through the 30th, 2022 as International Dark Sky Week in recognition of the effects of light pollution on the environment. And whereas Natural Bridge State Park strives to protect all natural resources through good stewardship and environmental education. Now, therefore, be it resolved that this resolution formally declares April 22nd through April 30th as International Dark Sky Week in Rockridge County, Virginia, and demonstrates the community support of local government officials to protect the night sky. Adoption of this resolution demonstrates your support for Natural Bridge State Park's effort to obtain silver tier dark sky park recognition by the International Dark Sky Association. Be it further resolved that Rockridge County will support whenever possible, the protection of the night sky of Natural Bridge State Park and the community in which we serve. Adopted this 25th day of April, 2022.
We have Mr. Jim Jones here with us. Would you like to say any words?
Please. I do thank you for the resolution, and there's a couple thanks that I want. We haven't been able to meet for a while, and I want to just share our gratitude for the support that Rockbridge County, the county administrator and the Board of Supervisors has given us over the years. It's due to your support and communication to local legislators that we have 5 additional staff, and much needed. And we have filled the last one. He's coming to work for us as a Chief Ranger Visitor Experience on May the 10th. So thank you so much for that. On Friday, this past Friday, we had the kickoff for the International Dark Sky Week. And we had 23 Friends members come to a special presentation that John Goss, who's the president of the Roanoke Astronomical Society, presented. And then from there, we went to Jefferson Point, where we used a new hay wagon that our friends bought from us from the co-op. And so we were able to use that. We had 53 people attending that night. And so it was quite exciting to see that number of people there, and things come by the park. We have on display in the cafe, the back part of the visitor center, some photographs that have been taken from Jefferson Point. There's one in particular that I really like. It's a nebula from Orion's belt. It was actually photographed from Jefferson Point. So there's some really cool photographs and things of the night sky that's up there. Just the information and stuff. There's also the Natural Bridge Elementary School has put together some artwork that's on display for the work that they've done. Again, thank you so much for your support.
Well, thank you, and thank the state park for all that you're doing for our community.
Welcome.
Just, Mr. Jones, I just want to say to thank you as well. Yeah, as you mentioned, I couldn't make it Friday night, but my children and I have enjoyed previous versions of that and seen things that, we've never seen through the special telescopes that you have. So those events are just great for the community. And that's why we're supporting you, because you support us. Thank you.
Since we have Mr. Jones here, would you like us all to gather and take a picture?
Yeah, we can do that, but you need a second, then
Oh, motion to approve. All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll say.
Okay. Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well. If the board would join me down front, we'll shake hands.
All right. Let's say dark sky. We'll do one of the flowers here. Maybe not. All right, that'll do. Thank you.
And we also have Business Appreciation Month resolution. Mr. Lewis?
Yes, sir. Looks like we're a little ahead of schedule as it's for May, but
we like to be proactive here. A resolution recognizing May as Business Appreciation Month in Rockridge County. Whereas on May 1, 2019, the governor of Virginia declared the month of May as Business Appreciation Month in the Commonwealth. And whereas Rockridge County businesses are vital to the county's economic prosperity and growth. And whereas Rockridge County businesses provide jobs, products, and services to our residents in our surrounding communities, and consumers far and wide. And whereas Rockridge County businesses continuously adapt, survive, and even thrive through tremulous economic times. And whereas Rockridge County's top employment industries for 2022 include retail trade, manufacturing, agriculture, accommodations, food service, and healthcare. And whereas agriculture-related businesses, including production, transportation, and distribution, are critical to our local economy and provide products to sustain our local communities and those far beyond our borders. And whereas Rockridge County is currently home to 1,600 business license holders and 29 manufacturing operations. And whereas as many Rockridge County's business license holders are small businesses operated by dedicated entrepreneurs. And whereas Rockridge County extends its gratitude and appreciation for the dedication and perseverance of all of our local businesses. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Supervisors of Rockridge County, will continue to hereby recognize May as Business Appreciation Month, and we call this observance to the attention of all our citizens and ask that you thank your local business owners and support their operations. Adopted this 25th day of April, 2022.
There a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second,
Second?
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well.
Ms. Flynn is here and she will make sure that that information gets out to all our businesses.
Thank you, Ms. Flynn.
You want to take a picture?
All right, we also have Foster Care Awareness Month proclamation. Mr. Lyons.
Yeah, whereas children are key to our community's future success, prosperity, quality of life. And whereas there are more than 5,400 children in Virginia's foster care system that have a right to thrive, learn, and grow in a safe and loving environment. And whereas foster parents provide love, safety, and stability that children need in order to overcome past traumatic experiences in order to reach their full potential. And whereas Rockbridge County foster parents are caring for and nurturing children and youth in the foster care today. And whereas we must come together as a community to recognize the important role foster parents play in caring for children who have experienced abuse and neglect, supporting family reunification, and building strong communities. And whereas a need exists to identify more foster parents in order to ensure children, older youth, children with complex needs, and siblings have a safe and stable home in their community. And whereas there are numerous individuals, businesses, organizations, associations, religious groups, and public servants who are dedicated to raising awareness about the needs of children and youth in foster care. And whereas Foster Care Awareness Month is celebrated nationally to raise awareness about foster care and to encourage community involvement as foster families, volunteers, and mentors. Be it therefore resolved, the County of Rockridge does hereby declare May 2022 as Foster Care Awareness Month in Rockridge County and urge all citizens to come forward and take action that will positively impact the life of a child in foster care. Be it further resolved, the County of Rockridge does hereby commend Intercept Health Treatment Foster Care for their efforts to raise awareness surrounding this societal crisis, adopted this 25th day of April, 2022.
Thank you, Mr. Lyons. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved?
And a second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. You now have citizen comments. Is there anyone signed up to speak, address the board? All right, is there anyone online wishing to address the board?
No hands raised.
Is there any written comments or anything that need to be brought forth in the minutes?
Nothing that, unless there's something with public hearing.
Is there anyone present didn't have an opportunity to sign up who wishes to address the board? Okay. All right, now we have approval of the April 4th budget meeting minutes. I'm going to separate these two in two different sections because Ms. Ayers was absent from one of them. So have you had the opportunity to review the April 4th budget meeting minutes? Or any questions, concerns, or comments? If none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes,
Mr. Lyons,
I'll abstain.
and chair votes yes. All right, now we have the approval of the April 11th, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Has everyone had opportunity to review? Any questions, concerns, comments? Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
And second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Day. I'm sorry, Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Ms. Ayers,
I abstain.
and chair votes yes. Now we have a consideration for application for outdoor events for Boxerwood music in the garden. Please, Mr. Slayton.
Yes, sir. Members of the board. In attendance tonight, we have Mr. Matt Krantz with Boxerwood. He has submitted an application for outdoor events to hold a series of outdoor music concert per Chapter 4, which is amusement and entertainment of the Rockbridge County Code. The music series concerts is known as Boxerwood Music in the Garden. The property is located at 963 Ross Road, Lexington, Virginia, and further identified as several many tax maps. There's actually 6 tax maps total associated with the Boxerwood parcels, consisting a total of 15.36 acres. So this is actually when I was drafting this agenda item, Mr. Krantz and I were discussing how long that this Boxerwood music in the garden was going. Since that time, we've confirmed that was 2014 was the first year of Boxer music in the garden. That was actually the last year of Boxer Woodstock. So in 2014, they actually had Boxer Woodstock, one large annual concert, and then a series of smaller concerts. Since that time, they obviously discontinued the Boxer Woodstock and have focused more on this a smaller series of concerts. So the purpose of tonight is to review the application for outdoor events, and if there's a consensus of the board, approve that outdoor music event applications, which is of course a series of music events. With that, I'll turn the floor over to Mr. Krantz to answer any questions or review anything I may have missed.
Thank you, Mr. Krantz. Is there anything you'd like to add with Mr. Slayton?
No, this is a great event that we've been putting on for years. Or I feel like there is. This is a way for Boxerwood to introduce ourselves to the community, and also a way for people to introduce themselves to the county and Boxerwood. We will take some inventory when people come in, and we get people from surrounding counties, surrounding states sometimes coming to visit, and of course lots from the county and city. And this is in line with our goals at Boxerwood to invite people into the garden and to eventually engage with Boxerwood and to educate them about nature and being good stewards of the earth.
Good deal. Thank you. Does anyone from the board have any questions for Mr. Krantz or Mr. Slayton?
No, I just want to thank you. It was the highlight, or one of the highlights of my COVID summer last year, was to enjoy this concert. So
We're
thank you
really
very much.
fortunate to be able to get that in.
There's no other comments. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved?
And second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
And chair votes yes as well. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Next up, we have authorization for Glasgow Rescue Squad to host a rabies clinic on Saturday, April 30th.
Yes, typically, the board receives these requests at the beginning of the year, the end of a calendar year, or the beginning of the next one, and try to do them all at once, but sometimes one pops up. Glasgow Life Saving First Aid Crew has requested approval to host a rabies clinic on Saturday, April 30th, this Saturday. Section 3.2-6521 B of the Code of Virginia requires that all rabies clinics are required to be approved by the appropriate local health department and the governing body. So anytime we have one of these, the Board of Supervisors needs to approve it to add it to the schedule, and we would request adding this to the schedule for this Saturday.
Is there any questions, comments, concerns?
Just thank them for doing it.
Certainly appreciate it. Is there a motion to?
Very fortunate to have not only the folks that will host this, but also the veterinarians that will provide these services.
Agree. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
And second?
I'll second.
All right, Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well. Now we have consideration of the SVJCC lease agreement. That's the Shenandoah Valley Juvenile Center Commission.
So Rockridge County is a member of the Shenandoah Valley Juvenile Justice Center Commission. It is located in Verona. Other members of the commission include Rockingham and Augusta counties and the cities of Lexington, Stanton, Waynesboro, and Harrisonburg. The center provides juvenile detention services for members and also offers contracted bed space and of course for a higher rate for non-members. I do represent, ever since I've started work here, I've represented the county on this commission. And the lease agreement for the use of the facility is out of date for all our members. And our legal counsel with the commission advised that we needed to update that lease agreement. And all of these leases have identical terms. When I say terms, the terms of the lease and the length of the term. Ms. Huffman has reviewed and approved the attached lease on behalf of the county. Payment terms are no different than the previous lease. And I'd like to answer any questions that you might have. And if not, request adoption of the attached resolution, which approves that updated lease agreement.
Any questions, comments, concerns about it? Do we need to read the resolution or just? Okay, you just approve. Good. Is there a motion to approve? And second?
Second.
And Mr. Day.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Lyon.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well. We have approval of VDOT's public hearing advertisement for the VDOT 6-year plan. I believe during our work session earlier, we went over the 6-year plan. I believe its public hearing is scheduled for, or would be scheduled for May 23rd, our board meeting. Is there any,
That's correct.
any additional questions, concerns, comments about that? As was said earlier during the work session, if you have some roads that you, board members, citizens, please contact your board representative. Board representatives, please contact Mr. Suter. We're tracking to make sure we get everything listed correctly. Is there a motion to approve for the public hearing for the VDOT 6-year plan?
So move.
And second?
Second.
All right. Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons?
Yes.
Ms. Ayers?
Yes.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
And Chair votes yes as well. Appointments. We have the Railroad Board of Directors to fill the unexpired term of Mr. Henney. Runs through June 30th of 2025. To date, I don't think we've received any applications. And so we'll continue that along. Planning Commission, Ms. Hines, term expires 5/11 of 2022. I believe Ms. Hines would like for us to find a replacement. Is that correct?
It's my understanding that is the case. But you know, if the board can't approve anybody before that date, I think she would be willing to serve a little bit longer. Is that correct, Mr. Sladen?
Yes, thank you. It just so happens that the May 11th, excuse me, just so happens the May 11th date is the date of the planning commission. So she's definitely good until the next planning commission. But in a conversation with Ms. Hines directly, she did state that she'd be willing to be reappointed and knowing it was on an interim basis. Thank you.
So we'll look for a replacement and
Yes, and you can act on this at the next regular board meeting.
Set from the district. And black.
Which, the question was, is it from a specific district or is it a county-wide nomination? All right, and then we have Library Board of Trustees, Mr. Goodale, term expires June 30th, 2022, willing to be reappointed. We don't have any other applicants. So motion to approve the reappointment.
So moved.
And second.
Second?
All right. Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Day.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
And Chair votes yes as well. We have the Maury Service Authority, Mr. Goode, term expires June 30th, 2022. Appears he's willing to be reappointed. Don't have any other applicants. Is there a motion to approve the reappointment? And second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
and Chair votes yes as well. We have the Shenandoah Valley Partnership, Brandy Flint, term expires June 30th, 2022, willing to be reappointed, no other applicants. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
All right, Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons,
Yes.
Mr. Day,
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
And Chair votes yes as well. Then we have the Rockridge Regional Communications Center Management Board 911. Mr. Cochran, term expires June 30th, 2022, willing to be reappointed, no other applicants. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
All right, Mr. Day,
Yes.
Ms. Ayers,
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis,
Aye.
and Chair votes yes as well. And we'll continue to look for, I assume you'll look for a replacement for Ms. Hunt.
Yes, we are actively doing that.
We have a few minutes before our public hearing start at 6 o'clock. Is there any board comments, anything any board members wish to address? We have our budget public hearing tomorrow night at 6 o'clock here. All right, we'll take, we'll hold off just a minute. Let Mr. Slayton, you come on, get set.
People here to speak, they need to sign up.
Yeah, if anybody is here to speak about a certain public hearing, please sign up over on the sign up sheet.
Trying
I thought that was some sort of a prop. Demo.
What's that?
I thought it was some sort of a prop. Or
No. This.
you're, echo.
You good to go, Mr. Slayton?
Yes, sir. There's actually two people in the hall.
Okay, well,
Where's that
it's on
from?
mute.
I think it's from you.
I am muted.
You muted on both.
Yes. Testing. Testing.
Test. We're good.
I think we're good.
All right, we will start with the St. Dunstan Academy, 54 Allen Creek Lane, Goshen, Virginia, application for special exception permit for a private school in the agricultural and general uses A2 zoning district. Mr. Slayton.
Yes, bear with me here. I'm going to share my screen. All right, this is a special exception, public hearing for special exception permit for a private school in the agricultural and general use districts. That's the A2 zoning district. The applicant is St. Dunstan's Academy. A little bit of brief review of the details of the property. Properties. The properties under consideration are owned by Daley W. and Donna J. Johnson. They are identified as tax map number 9-1-4 and 9-1-1B. And the second landowner involved in the application is Stuart B. Jones. That's tax parcel 9-A-1, 9-1-2C2, 9-1-1B1, and 9-1-2B2. The Johnson tracts consist of a total of 71.9 acres per tax records, and the Drones tracts consist of a total of 193.93 acres, again, per tax records. The properties are located in the agricultural and limited use districts, A1, and the agricultural and general use districts, A2. All proposed facilities would be located in the A2 zoning district. Per section, as far as the special exception proposal itself, per section 603.03-20 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, private schools are used by special exception in the A2 zoning district. As far as the special exception process itself, at the February 9th, 2022 Planning Commission, the Planning Commission held its public hearing. During the meeting, citizens expressed concerns on additional traffic associated with the school, access for emergency management, shared drive / right-of-way along the Milo property, taxing implications, noise associated with this use, floodplain concerns, and potential impacts on adjacent landowners regarding firearms and hunting regulations, and conflict with the existing land uses. Along with these concerns, others express support for the proposed use, stating that the school would be an asset to the area. The Planning Commission continued the public hearing, and therefore at the March 9th, 2022, the Planning Commission meeting held its continued public hearing. The Planning Commission was closed. The Planning Commission postponed taking action on the application in order for the applicant to provide additional information on the potential location of wells, plural, singular and plural, and drain fields, again, singular and plural, and or alternative septic systems, and explore any issues with the shared right-of-way, maintenance cost, and provide additional information on the proposed school curriculum. At the April 13th Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission recommended approval of the special exception application with the following conditions. Number one, the private school shall be developed in substantial compliance with the master plan for St. Dunstan's Academy, dated January 12th, 2022, with a revision date of March 9th, 2022, prepared by Fire Associates Architecture. Number two, access to the private school shall be along Allen Creek Lane, including new access road and proposed extension of Allen Creek Lane, as shown on the reference plan. The fire lane, as shown on the reference plan, will be limited to emergency purposes only. Number three, road and stream crossing on Allen Creek Lane, including new access road and proposed extension of Allen Creek Lane, shall be designed, built, and maintained to accommodate fire apparatuses and ambulance. The road and stream crossing plans will be reviewed and approved by the Rockbridge County Office of Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Management. Number 4, all new buildings shall be located outside of the 100-year floodplain. Number 5, total numbers of students not to exceed 60. Number 6, the school will be limited to boarding school only, parentheses, no stay students, and limited to 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grades. Number 11, development to be commenced within 3 years of date of approval. Number 8, all trash will be taken directly to the landfill and not the county collection centers or county green boxes. Number 9, development of the lighting development shall be in in compliance with section 1303 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations. And number 10, approval contingent upon Vdot, Virginia Department of Transportation, Health Department, Building Department, Department of Education, and Rockbridge County Office of Fire, Rescue, and Emergency Management approvals. With that, I'd like to turn this portion of the presentation over to Mr. Thomas Fickley, headmaster with St. Dunstan's Academy.
Members of the Board of Supervisors, thank you for reviewing our application and for taking the time to hear our request for a special exception permit to build our school. My comments run about 8 minutes tonight, so you know what to expect. My name is Thomas Fickley, and I am the founding headmaster of St. Dunstan's Academy. I and the other founders are hoping to plant a small Christian agricultural school near Craigsville in the Walkers Creek district, a school where young men can go back in time and learn good traditional practices that our culture is rapidly losing. We think schools should teach boys what they need to know in order to live a good life, to be good husbands and good fathers and good citizens. Many high school graduates now do not know how to pray, how to work, how to sing, how to read well, how to grow their own food, and how to take responsibility for their own actions, how to treat others with respect, how to care for and preserve the land they live on, how to love their neighbors, and how to build beautiful things with the 2 hands that God gave them. We hope to help change that. The small cohort of boys, 48 to 60 in number, who live at this boarding school will take their classes and study together. We'll go to church together. We'll learn to pray, sing, and play music, repair broken farm equipment and tools, read classic books, apprentice in the arts of woodworking and timber framing, swing hammers in a traditional forge, and wonder at the beauty of creation as they gaze at the stars, fly fish for trout, and hike through the remote woods of Rockbridge County. In November, our school signed contracts on 2 adjoining pieces of property off of Little River Road that you've seen on the map. And on that land, we have planned to build a campus with a chapel, a library, a hall for the boys to feast in, several small workshops, and some faculty and student residence buildings. School, Lord willing, will be a beautiful and peaceful retreat in which young men will gain knowledge and virtue under the guidance of good mentors and free from the many distractions of the modern technological buzz. It's worth noting that the average teenager now spends somewhere between 7 and 9 hours a day on their screens. When you think about the other 7 to 9 hours a day being spent in schools, they have to have time to sleep and eat. There's not time for very much else. While residing at St. Dunstan's, the boys will not use smartphones or computers. They will have a temporary rest from social media, the noise and clutter of online life, and the anxieties that come with those things. In order to live a good life, young men need an education in fundamental things, and they need to come into contact with reality through their bodies as well as through their minds. To that end, a major part of our school's mission and practice will be based around farming. The boys will raise and grow their own food, learning sustainable practices that regenerate the land rather than just depleting it. They will learn to care for forests in order to keep them healthy and growing. Hopefully, this type of hands-on agricultural education will both produce capable men who know the value and joy of a hard day's work and inspire some boys to take up farming and conservation for their own livelihoods after graduation. A combination of a classical educational curriculum and a trades-based apprenticeship model is just the right thing for teenage boys. Since November, we've consulted with a variety of experts and contractors to ensure that our plan is feasible and responsibly designed and meets the zoning criteria for Rockridge County. John Cameron from Vdot came out and did an entrance study for us and determined that we have adequate sight lines to install the type of commercial entrance that we would need for this school. Russ Orison from Perkins and Orison Engineering came out and did a road study for us and determined that the types of improvements we would need to make on our planned driveway and the existing road would in fact be feasible. Fire Chief Nathan Ramsey also came out twice to do a study on our road to see if it would support his emergency vehicles and equipment, and submitted 2 memos to show us what we needed to do to improve those roads in order to support emergency services. In our 3 hearings with the Planning Commission in February, in March, and in April, we responded to concerns about the school's impact potentially on the community. Our property is close to the Little Calf Pasture River, and we will need to be conscientious about how we build in order to protect it. Our proposed building site, to that end, is hundreds of feet away from the river, up a long ridge and tucked away behind tree and underbrush cover. We also heard concerns at the last hearings about our septic system potentially polluting the land and the river. And so engineer John Burleson came out in early April and conducted a soils evaluation for us in 11 test pits that we dug on site. And he determined that the soil on the property is suitable for the type of engineered drain field that we would need to support the school. That system requires at least 20 feet of setbacks from all rivers and streams, and we've designed them to have at least 75 feet of setback at all points. We've been very conservative with where we've planned to put those. We want our young men to learn how to steward and preserve the land well, and similarly for us as we build, we're committed to doing that from the very first day of our operations. In our previous hearings, we also fielded concerns about noise pollution and that our presence would adversely impact our neighboring property owners' way of life. Our planned building sites are very, very remote and set back from the neighbor's boundaries by at least 100 feet at all points. With the exception of 1 faculty home, all of the buildings we have planned are planned to be in the woods, away from the eye. And the main center of campus is about a football field away from either neighboring properties' borders, to the east or to the west. It's hundreds of yards to the nearest unoccupied dwelling, and about 1,000 yards and over a 200-foot tall ridge to the nearest occupied dwelling. This property is really out there. Our school has also heard concerns about traffic. We've designed the school for 48 to 60 boys and the faculty families who are going to care for them. There will be no day students at the school, as Mr. Sladen just said, and we have planned to build 10 faculty homes on campus so that our faculty can live on site in order to take care of the boys who attend there. Traffic, therefore, is going to be very minimal because all of our faculty and students will live on site once we've completed our buildings. For the section of driveway that we share with Mr. Milo to the west of our site, the school responded to that concern by volunteering to take on the entire cost of driveway maintenance. That's a section of our driveway that has a shared maintenance agreement on it. And we volunteered to take over the total maintenance cost of that section. In my conversations with our neighbors out at the site, I've also heard concerns raised about our land coming off the tax rolls if the county decides to grant us tax exempt status. Our property will still receive county services, they have said, like fire and rescue visits. And our faculty families would be able to send their children to the public schools if they chose to. And these things are true. If the IRS grants us our 501c3 status, and if the county decides to grant us exemption from real estate taxes, and those are 2 big ifs, then we want to find a way to pay our fair share towards those services. And we're willing to work with the county to find any appropriate way to do that. Further, our boys will be required to do community service as part of their program. Tax rolls aren't the only question here. It's hard to overestimate what a group of 48 to 60 motivated teenage boys can accomplish. We are going to require all of our boys to do community service. And even if we only require 10 hours per semester, with 48 boys, let's say we don't make it all the way up to 60, that's about 1,000 man hours of labor that we can contribute to Rockbridge County, helping to pick up littered roads and repair buildings that have fallen into disrepair, and talk to our neighbors about ways to help them around their farms and around their shops to fix things up or be of service, and generally find ways to help people in our community. Our school's efforts, therefore, will add to Rockbridge County's resources, not merely deplete them. And so in closing, I expect that tonight we will hear public comments about traffic, about noise pollution, about other forms of pollution, about the disruption to nearby farming operations. And we'll probably hear that this land will not have the holding capacity to sustain the number of people that we're talking about putting there. I want to emphasize that we've spent the last 3 months taking these concerns very seriously and earnestly answering these concerns with thoughtful plans and by consulting the people that we needed to in order to answer them. We're doing our due diligence to make sure that our plan corresponds with the Rockbridge County Comprehensive Plan. We want to protect and preserve this beautiful secluded property in the process, as well as the properties of our neighbors. We hope that this school would bring life and joy not only to these young men who attend over the coming years, but also to Rockbridge County. In closing, I'd like to thank our sellers, Mr. Jones and Mrs. Jones, and also the Johnson families for their patience with us. They've been very generous and have allowed us to keep this land under contract for about 5 months while we work through the county process. So thank you to those families. And thank you all for considering our proposal. Let me know if there are other questions that I can answer at this point.
Any questions from the board?
I have one. If this is approved, when will these buildings be built, and when do you anticipate actually have them completed so that you can bring 48 to 60 students?
That depends on the time of approval. Our original target date for opening was September of 2023. We wanted to have at least our Great Hall, which is the dining hall facility, and 2 faculty homes built by then. That would allow us to temporarily have some of the boys in the basement of the Great Hall for dormitories while they helped to get some of their trades education by building the dorms on campus. So we would have hopefully a partially open school in about 16 months' time. That's a pretty ambitious timeline at this point. We had originally hoped to be building it by now. So I'd say our first year will either be September of 2023, that would be our opening date, but maybe more conservatively fall of September 24. And I guess to elaborate on that a little bit more, our current building process is chunked up into 3 different stages over a total of 5 years. So we're hoping to have completed all of our building process in 5 years.
So part of your building process is actually for the boys to be building it?
Yeah, we're hoping, and there are a few other schools that have done this before. St. Martin's Academy out in Fort Scott, Kansas is where we got this idea from. If these boys are going to be getting a trades education and hopefully learning how to build basic structures in order to take care of themselves and their families, there's not really a better way to do it than having them practice on site. And the buildings for their dorms are basically small 2-room cabins that would be a really great introduction to things like timber framing and drying in a house. So that's our plan, is to have them help us work on those dormitories. And then the nice thing is after that, those buildings will be kind of living textbooks for the other boys that learn the trades there. And the boys who go there can have something to take pride in and say, look, I helped put this together.
Would you be following like a Department of Education criteria for your, I guess I'm wondering when a child would graduate from there, what type of degree, diploma, certification would they have as compared to a child attending public school?
Right, they would get a diploma conferred from our school. Now, it's a private school, so the Department of Education doesn't manage independent schools. That's ultimately up to the administration of the school, but they get a diploma just like a child graduating from the public schools. We could also, if we decided that it was necessary and helpful, pursue accreditation with one of many independent school accreditation agencies. The last 2 schools that I've taught at were both accredited by the Virginia Association of Independent Schools, and I participated on accrediting committees for both of those schools and helped to put together the accreditation documents for those. We've not made a determination about whether or not to do that yet, but we're looking into accreditation with an organization called the Anglican Schools Organization. It's relatively new.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you very much. We will now open up the public hearing. Take your time, Chris. We ask when you come forward, please state your name clearly, magisterial district. Please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes so we can have everybody have an opportunity to speak. Who do we have signed up to?
William Bashaw. You're not required to sign up. We'll recognize you, but the only person signed up is William Bashaw. If you'd like to come up, state your name, magisterial district.
My name is William Bashaw. I live very close to this location in Augusta County. I rent the farm that adjoins this in Rockbridge County that's owned by Eddie Parker. I have been involved here because I'm going to have to be close to these people and I don't really like what's going on. I've only got 3 minutes and I don't have time to really beat around the bush on this. All of the adjoining landowners, except for one, have signed a letter of opposition to this. I'm gonna read that letter. Wait a minute. Dear Planning Commission members, that was the letter was to the Planning Commission. I am writing to express my absolute opposition to the grant of special exemption permit requested by St. Dunstan's at 54 Allen Creek Lane, Goshen, Virginia. The creation of a residential village under the label of school with 21 buildings and between 18 and 100 full-time residents poses a serious threat to the environment, trash, noise, calf pasture river. It's a little calf pasture, and will destroy the natural beauty of the area. A project of this size and scope does not belong in the area where it is being proposed. As a neighbor of the property and among the people who would be most affected by development, I implore you to honor my obligation and refuse to grant the special exemption permit. This letter was sent to the county, and all of the adjoining landowners except for one, and that was Grover Thompson, and he abstains, signed this letter. No one there wants this. Now, I can go into a lot of reasons. One of the biggest problems is if this thing doesn't pay taxes, it's the very reason that taxes are so high in Rockbridge County. It's actually a tax-free housing development masquerading as a school that pays no taxes. This is crazy. Why did they pick such a remote, inaccessible place for this? There's two reasons that I can see. So it will be out of the sight and out of the minds of Rockbridge taxpayers. And so they can do whatever they want with no prying eyes to see what actually happens there. This is actually a commune using high school age kids as workers that don't get paid. People who work regularly and don't get paid are called slaves. It takes a lot of work to grow food for 80 to 100 people. Mr. Fickley has proposed to spend many millions of dollars with the money going to local people. I think that's why this is so appealing to Rockbridge County. Some of these people that may benefit by this, all this money being spent, I suspect are in your local government or have friends or relatives that are related. This is called a conflict of interest. And it is a violation of state law.
Sir, if you could wrap up your comments.
Okay. I think I've pretty well covered it. It's not wanted by any of the neighbors except for one that abstained. And there are a lot of things can go wrong with this because it's a hidden housing development that looks like that may be a school. And the only thing is, there's not even actually a school building. They call it a great hall. There's no classrooms, I don't think. So I think that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bashaw.
That's all that's signed up, but we'll recognize anyone and everyone that'd like to speak. If you could come up, state your name and magisterial district.
Hello. I'm Sandra Campbell, and I don't actually live in the district. My family has owned land there for 3 generations and hopefully for 3 more. We take my granddaughter there a lot. I don't know if it's a conspiracy. I don't really disagree with what he thinks he can do there. I don't think he can do it there. My concern is more the what if? What if he can't? What if he can't get this off the ground? What if he is given the special permit to build this wonderful place and it never happens? What's going to be there when my granddaughter wants to go enjoy the land that we back up to? I mean, our land backs up to him. So it's more of a, I don't know what the board takes into consideration. You know, I know you can't base things on, well, he might get it off the ground, he might not. But I guess I'm concerned about what can go in there if this fails. What's my land going to back up to in 20 years? Will my granddaughter still be able to enjoy things they enjoy there now? Camping, watching wildlife. Once the first excavator goes in there, the natural wildlife and, you know, plants and things, they're gone. And they're not going to stick around in the surrounding acreage either. So, you know, it's what point will the natural wildlife and plants and things that we enjoy so much make a comeback and be there for the next generation, even if this does work. But if it doesn't work, because I don't know the answer as to what you consider when you make decisions about special use permits, what can go in there after the school if the school fails? It would be my concern.
Thank you, Ms. Campbell. Anyone else in the audience wishing to address the board, please come forward, state your name, magisterial district.
My name is Don Bass. We own 1,050 acres in Walker's Creek District. We farm it since 1970. I'm concerned that, you know, taxes, one thing, we pay taxes. We do not have a choice of how much we pay or volunteer to pay. We also are concerned about the traffic because I also own a farm in Augusta County, so I'm travel back and forth. And heavy equipment, wide equipment, and these people, it's not used to being on small roads. It's going to make it more dangerous to have more people. And they've never said how much land they are actually going to cultivate for food, what type of cultivation they're going to do, tillage or no-till or organic, non-organic. I'm just kind of finding out that they're not going to be able to do the food that they say they are going to do on this property. And so that's my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bass. Anyone else wishing to address the board, please come forward, state your name, magisterial district.
Winston Campbell, Walker Creek District. I own a farm adjacent to this land. I got better than a half a mile of fence that'll be backed up to it. All their houses, all their buildings are within 50 yards of my fence. And I don't like it. The wildlife, they will destroy the wildlife in their land, but they will also run it off of my land. You put 100 people down there in a little place, they go build the whole thing on 25 acres. And the drain fields and everything is down in the flood zone. They bought 113 acres across a river that's totally useless. They can't even get to it 90% of the time. If the water's up, there's no getting to it. They bought land that was used for hunting and cutting a few trees off of. It's been sold 4 or 5 times in my lifetime. And it was sold for the same purpose every time. Wildlife. And that was it. They bought all 280 acres. They got less than 25 acres that can be tilled up and something planted in it. And I don't know where they're gonna raise all these cows. Now, there is room and pasture for cattle or whatever else they want. But far as putting in a garden or crop land, it ain't there. It's nothing there. If anybody has been out there to look at it, they'll see that it's all woods and shrub brush and one hay field on the Johnson place. And on the Jones place, there's nothing but one little field that I cleaned off 30 years ago because I was over the place when other people owned it. We brought petitions, or they were sent here with 30+ names on them, not to do this. And like he said, only one landowner all the way around out of 12 landowners or 13, one man said, I'm neutral. Don't count me for it or against it. And everybody else signed the petition. Everybody else plus their neighbors wrote these letters that he read, and we had them sent up here. I don't know if you've read them or looked at them. My farm has been in my family for 150 years. Eddie Parker's land that's across the river from me that joins right much of the 113 acres that's useless to them. His has been in his family since the 1700s. And we just, if it's going to be a life change for every neighbor, because what they want to put there is going to change the surrounding area, all the land, for a long way as far as wildlife and usage. My life, I'm 75, and I have, since I could walk, went down to the river, fished, swam, had picnics, and that's done because it's already going to be 100 people down there. And Mr. Milo's piece that he bought for the same reason that Jones bought his was the recreation and hunt on. It's done for him. There's going to be 10 houses looking right at his place. We'll have to move at least 5 tree stands that we hunt out of because they're going to be looking right at somebody's front door. And it don't fit.
Mr. Campbell, your time's up. If you could make a closing statement or wrap up your statement.
Well, it just, I don't know. It does not suit. The land is not a place for this. Why would any 10 families want to move back in the woods out of sight and then employ 50 to 60 boys to help them do the work, to live off the grid by themselves somewhere? That don't make sense. It sounds like something else, but my lawyer told me not to say it here in this courtroom. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Next.
Good evening. My name is Trey Bailey, and I teach at a local middle school for boys. And when I found out about Mr. Svjcc and his project, I knew it was something that I wanted to support. I'd ask that if you would imagine some years from now, you have a little child sitting on your knee, and that child asks you, what did you do during the pandemic and the years that followed? What did you do when society was trying to regroup and rebuild? Now, I should mention that this child happens to be a very bright and articulate child. But the question is the same. What did you do to help? I'm sure that you would be able to list many things. Some of those things you probably voted on in this very room to help us regroup and rebuild. And well, I know that Mr. Svjcc is looking forward to telling his children and hopefully his grandchildren, well, I built a school that helped boys become men and love God and others and live their lives devoted to all that is true, good, and beautiful. And I built it in Rockbridge County. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to remind you that in this very room, the Planning Commission heard many objections, all of which have been rehashed in various forms this evening. And after a thorough consideration and lots of working with Mr. Fickley, they determined to vote unanimously in approval for this project. As you well know, some have come here tonight expressing their disapproval. And it's not that they don't support the vision of the school. In previous remarks, they've mentioned that it's a great idea, just not in my neck of the woods, is sort of the general plea. Go somewhere else with your good ideas. Well, if we were talking about some foreign corporation coming in here, I'd probably be in agreement with them. But we're talking about a fellow Virginian. And he may be a come here, but he came from just right up the road. And he doesn't want necessarily to do something new as much as he wants to conserve and preserve a way of life that is largely and rapidly being forgotten. We are proud of our schools and our universities, and Mr. Fickley wants to continue the rich tradition of this county being the birthplace and home of institutions of excellent and honorable education. Land is limited, and property is, well, this property in particular is perfectly suited for what Mr. Fickley wants to do. He wants to plant, he wants to pray, and he wants to prepare young men to live a life that is noble and in service to God and country. Won't you agree and affirm the vote that brought us here tonight and vote yes to approve this permit? Mr. Fickley is a good man with a good plan for what to do next. And please let me encourage you to grant him your yes tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Anyone else wishing to address the board, please step forward, state your name, Astro District.
My name is Lisa Milo, and I'm from the Walkers Creek District. We are the neighboring property to Mr. Fickley. Our property will be very much in alignment with where the buildings are placed. Although Mr. Fickley and I probably agree on some of those same values as protecting land, I believe strongly in agriculture. I believe strongly in teaching our children to pray and the joy of just being outdoors. One thing that we are very much in disagreement about is how that is being done. When he talks about building 21 buildings, that's 21 structures, some quite large, 4,000 square feet, it can't happen without removing trees, displacing rock and soil, and not to mention the large equipment that we require to move through this beautiful forested area. The small shared lane gravel road between our property and Mr. Fickley's proposed building site would surely change to accommodate students, faculty, families, emergency vehicles. Again, this presents not only a disruption to us and to all of the neighbors, but also, as it was said before, to the wildlife, forested area, and potentially the Little Calf Pasture River. The proposal does not provide much information or any information on how the electricity will be brought down to the site. We have very limited information on the sanitation plans, the farming, the fencing, and the roadways. All of these necessary items will again change that land, the river, and the wildlife forever. We bought this property because of its beauty, wildlife, forested areas, and its agricultural use. We now have 4 generations of my family using this property to hike, to picnic, to camp, and of course, observing the beautiful wildlife. We appreciate your county for treasuring natural areas and maintaining the beauty of this rural area and rural community. We ask that you decline this proposal to put up this community, this 21 buildings of 60 to 100 people there year round, so that we can maintain the beauty and the agricultural use of this land that's there now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Anyone else wishing to address the board?
Thank you, gentlemen and madam. Steve Milo, I'm from the Walkers District. Lisa is my wife. I am on the other side of the property being built. We share that road. There was a lot of discussion about the good purposes the school intends to serve. We're not necessarily opposed to those, but we're not here to talk about those. The question really is, does this development belong where they want to put it? If Mr. Sladen could put up, this is in your packet, This is a picture of the area. Okay, this is what we're starting from. And it's in an A2 area. Okay, A2 right out of the comprehensive plan proposes a future land use direction that is more consistent with the expressed desires of the residents to preserve the county's rural character and encourage development in areas that are not suitable for development. This is the area that sits there now. This is what the comprehensive plan says, let's preserve that. If you go, the zoning ordinances picks up on the same thing. The agriculture and general use district A2 is created in a rural clearing area to protect and maintain forestry lands, natural and scenic resources, to protect river frontages and river basins. That's what this is designed for. This project destroys all that. The floodplain that you see outlined in red, that might be 75 feet from the river. That is going to serve as a septic drain field, we think, because if you look at your package, that sanitation system is not in concrete. It's a proposal. There's more work to be done. But that is going to serve as the drain field for septic. That is also where they plan on having their athletic events. So you're going to have 60, 70 boys, 60 boys playing on top of a septic field, which is within a rock's throw of the riverbank. 75 feet sounds nice, but I can assure you in that floodplain, that water comes out of that bank 25, 50 feet easily. We had put a picnic bench, if you can see, this is shared road, this is the river. We put a picnic table in our floodplain. After a heavy rain, we came back, I thought somebody stole it. The water had risen out of the bank, picked that table up, a 6-foot wooden picnic table, and pushed it into that brush. That is where they're going to have their septic field. That is where the nitrogen management plan has to be. That is where their athletic field is going to be. And they talked about Chief Ramsey, Fire Department. Read his letter carefully. He said, okay, maybe, but he says you're going to need a dry hydrant. A dry hydrant, as I asked Mr. Ramsey to explain to me, is a pipe stem in the river that the pumper truck pulls down to, hooks up, pumps the water out of the river to fight a fire. In a development, you see all that green, that's not going to be there because that's where they're going to put 21 buildings. That's in a floodplain. You get a hard rain, you get snow, and you have a fire up there, that truck's not getting down there. This is all being put in that area. That's why this location isn't the right location for this project. I'm not real good at math. When I looked at the schematic, the 21 buildings, may I have please a few minutes, Mr.
Please wrap up.
He's going to put it, I think it's in 2.5 acres. There's a sliver between Mr. Campbell's property and mine where all of this construction is going to happen. The topography of this property starts at about 21 feet, 2,100 feet over the river, comes down to a little calf pasture over the course of about 700 feet. It's the side of a hill, literally. The areas in which you can construct anything is in a very little sliver. That's what they're going to have to deforest. That's what's going to have to happen. That's what they can't build in the playing field, in the floodplain. It's going to run out of that area into that playing field. I take issue with Mr. Finkley. I appreciate it. He's a fine man. We're going to see this. It is so inappropriate to be there. These houses are going to be right on the boundary lines because he doesn't have a whole lot of room there. It is not about agreeing with their mission. This just simply doesn't belong there. Protein. I asked this question. Apparently, they're going to slaughter chicken to feed these people. They're going to feed 100 people year round. How many thousands of birds is that going to require? Where is that being treated? The septic system report that they had, they're estimating about 6,000 gallons a day without the residence halls and no accommodation for the slaughter. All that's going to go in that drain field. All that's going to go in the drain field. You're dealing with a nightmare. Again, if you look at the report carefully, it says at over 1,000 gallons, they have to go to some extra level of treatment. I don't know that stuff. And unfortunately, we didn't even see that report until a week or two ago after the public comment ended. So it's not just about not liking what they're doing. We just don't think it can be done. And frankly, if it doesn't work, we suffer. Nobody bought that property thinking they were going to put in what is effectively a small town on the side of it. That is what that is. I heard for the first time this evening, some of the residents might go to public schools. That shared driveway, the traffic count on that driveway, right, that shared road rather, the traffic count you can number in vehicle traffic a month on one hand. That's going to become Main Street. That's the only way in and out to this development area, up and down that road. The wildlife, the preservation, gone. You can't have that going on every single day. Don't even talk about special events. Homecomings, Parents' Day, you have 200 people out there.
Mr. Milo, can you wrap it up there? Please?
I did write a letter. I hope you did get a chance to look at that because that outlined a lot of it. In wrap up, just a few comments from Mr. Finkley. Talked about labor for the neighborhood. You heard your constituents say, we don't want it. It's nice of them to offer, but we don't want it. Something about taxes. It's a 501c3. I don't think you can pay taxes if you want to. And I'm not sure the county can accept taxes unless it's on a tax roll. There's prohibitions against that stuff. And keep in mind, there's a comment made at the Planning Commission where it's in land use now, so it's not a lot of money. We're talking about a multi-million-dollar investment here. That property would skyrocket in value. And now you're going to have to possibly educate emergency services all out there for tax rate. The Planning Commission vote, only 3 members showed up. I don't know what happened. I'm not saying anything. It was unanimous of the 3 that were there. I don't know where the other 2 went. There was some questions and concerns raised by all the members. They did vote, but to correct the record, unanimous of the 3 that were there. I don't know how the other 2 would have voted, but just want to point that out. Just a few things about the applicant. It's not a school. The school doesn't exist right now. He created an entity that he's looking for 501c3. We don't know about the financing. Ms. Campbell talked about what happens if. We don't know what his financing is. We don't know where it's coming from. He hasn't done a study to see if this is needed. There are nonprofit schools failing all the time, struggling for students. We have no idea if this is going to work. And if it does work, he picks up and walks, it gets left behind.
Thank you, Mr. Milo.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, I really appreciate that.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your comments. Anyone else wishing to address the board? Is there anyone online wishing to address the board?
Don't see any hands raised. Oh, wait a minute. Here we go. Okay, now you want to recognize Mr. Jones?
Mr. Jones, any comments for the board? Mr. Jones online, do you have a comment for the board?
I think he's trying to get on.
You are muted. There you go.
Okay.
You're unmuted now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you if you speak up.
Okay, sorry about that. Sorry.
Hold on just a second. I'm gonna try to turn you up a little bit. You might have to speak a little louder, but hold on.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Wait just 1 second, please.
Okay.
Okay, it's as high as I can take it.
All right, try it.
Okay, I'll speak as loud as I can. My name is Stuart Jones, Walker's District. I'm one of the owner of the land, which is being talked about here, where the actual school is being built. I just want to, talk about my support for the school. I did send an email to all of y'all to read, and I'm not going to go over every point. That's been, rehash everything, but I am in support of the school. I think the location is actually ideal. A lot of consideration and thought went into that to have the least impact on the neighbors. I realize all the neighbors are obviously you've heard today are against it. However, I know that Mr. Fickley and the school will be great neighbors for them. And I think they will come around to realize that as well, personally, of the people I know and met there over the years. The mission of the school, conservation and agriculture are very important to me personally. I've served on Chesterfield Farm Bureau for 25 plus years as president and on the board of directors. I've been a member of the James River Soil and Water District. I was elected for 4 years. I'm currently serving as an appointed member. Now, I'm only speaking on behalf of myself as a taxpayer. not on behalf of that, of Farm Bureau or the Soil and Water District. But I can assure you, in my opinion, that the school is going to take not only are they going to do the right thing to sustain the property, to make it as environmentally friendly as possible, and to do the right thing there, because that's, you know, one reason why I went move forward with the contract with them, because of my belief of that and how important it is to me. And I've had this land on a stewardship plan for many years and followed that practice. And most of it's been timber, as Mr. Campbell mentioned, and actually the property where they're talking about building, my next thing probably would have been due to clear cut that. So that's been cut before right there. There's some trees in there, but it's not, you know, it's not this picturesque place as some people have imagined. It is a beautiful piece of property. And I just hope that these boys and the school can enjoy it as well as everybody else has that's been down there. I believe this does meet the comprehensive plan, and I think they have, you know, the school has reached out to the neighbors. We've had a meeting out there with the commissioner to address their concerns. I think not using the road from Little River Road, where my property is currently, you know, access all the way to the river and coming in through Allen Creek Lane is a huge, huge benefit for the Kaufman and Campbell properties, not having people having to go up that road. So that is a huge thing that they did getting the Allen property, and also agreeing to pay for the maintenance going down from, you know, where Milo and the school school will be using that road where it's the property line. So you know, Mr. Milo, they do have roads all through their property, just like I have on mine. They don't have to go down that way past the school if they don't want to. They got all kind of meander roads through their property that are still in good shape. And that's pretty much it. If you have any questions about my property itself, but I hope you'll vote for this. I think it's a great school that will really help a lot of kids learn on. They'll take in what they learn here and keep it for the rest of their lives on helping our environment and be, you know, in our conservation efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there anyone else online wishing to address the board?
We have Andrew Johnson.
Mr. Johnson, can you hear us?
Thank you. Can you all hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Hold on just a second. Let me make one more adjustment. All right, let's try that.
Okay, how about now?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
All right, thank you all for this opportunity to allow me to speak. I know you all have heard a lot of discussions, a lot of numbers and stuff. I represent the family that has the farm on the other side of the ridge. It's about 70 acres. That farm was in our family for at least 3, if not 4 generations. And even though it's we're sad that we are selling the farm, but we're excited in the fact that the school is looking to use this property to raise future generations. One of the things I'd like to make sure is keep in consideration, because we hear about the traffic and you know, tearing up the ground and trees and stuff. Keep in mind that on our side of the ridge, where the school is looking to do a lot of the farming and things like that, that's what that land's already there. As Mr. Campbell mentioned, there's pasture land. We have barns there, tractors. It's being actively managed and farmed as we speak. So a lot of that heavy usage of the land is actually going to be on our side of the ridge, which will help prevent, you know, all the impacts that are being discussed there. And so I want to make sure that that was brought out. And then finally, I'll keep my comments short, is that I think back as I hear all this discussion to a few decades ago when you all were considering building the Virginia Horse Center. And I know there was a lot of hand wringing and discussions about that. And there was a lot of people against it. But we look over time at the bold decision that your predecessors made in bringing in that Virginia Horse Center, and what a benefit it has been to the county since then. And so I think in a smaller microcosm, this school represents the best of Rockridge County, its long tradition of education. And we, as the Johnsons, are happy that they have considered us and our neighbors to bring in this small school to further diversify the educational opportunities in Rockridge County. So we thank you all for this time, and we thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Is there anyone else online wishing to address the board?
I don't see any hands raised.
Last opportunity for anyone online. We good there?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. Slayton, do you have some comments that you need to have read into the public record?
I do. So throughout the planning commission process, we've received many comments through both my personal email address, but also in particular planning commission citizen comments. I did my best to forward those along to you. I actually gave 2 of them out this afternoon. I think one was from Mr. Parker and one was from Mr. Vest this afternoon. I do have one from Mr. Jones that was mailed in during the citizen comment period. Since he did speak, I think it'd be appropriate just to skip that one. We do have one from a Crystal J. Kaufman. It's addressed to the zoning committee and the board of supervisors. I'm writing to express my concerns about approving a special exception for a private boys boarding school, St. Dunstan's Academy. The portion of land that is current in the agricultural zone property frequently floods. Adding 5 bunkhouses and 10 dwellings for faculty and other campus halls will have a huge environmental impact. I'm concerned about the potential disruption and pollution that will be sure to follow. What type of septic system would be put in place? What about water supply? What impact will the private school of 40 to 68 boys have on the Little Calf Pasture River stream and the Maury River? The increase of traffic pollution caused by supply runs for the school will raise greater noise and air pollution to the surrounding community of Bells Valley. What will the private school do to ensure that the wildlife already established will not be displaced? What are the ages of the boys? Who will attend the boarding school? What will the boarding school be primarily for United States citizen, or will be foster children or refugees? Does St. Dunstan's currently have an established successful model they are following? What security will be provided? Will Second Amendment rights be violated in addition to what private school farmland? Is there a plan for compensation for the neighboring farmers who will be sharing the road rights of ways? Will the burden and expense of the increased pollution and traffic be passed to neighboring landowners? We have too many unknowns to approve this special exception for the rezoning. As a landowner and a voter, I'm recommending denying the special exception until more information has provided to the adjoining property owners and farmers already in the Bells Valley area. Sincerely, Crystal J. Kaufman. The next one I have is from it's mailed into the citizen comments. That was addressed to the Rockridge County Board of Supervisors. Is from John Hoover Hanley, Haney. I write from the Walker's Creek Magisterial District, Goshen, Virginia. I write to speak against the special exception submitted by, St. Dunstan's Academy. There's not a complete environmental impact study to demonstrate the impact of 15 plus initially constructed in a floodplain, the impact of erosion from the construction, and the longer term realities of flooding, the negative impact upon farms, pastures, streams, rivers on the west and south side of the parcel. Will the runoff have a negative impact on Allen Creek, the Little Calf Pasture, and the Maury River? What mitigation measures will be implemented? Also overlooked is the anticipated 60 to 100 persons living there. This is not agricultural, it's a business. There will be a need to increasing the numbers in order to have the income for resident students. There's no demonstration of limiting the number of persons into the future. There's no display of safe placement of septic system drain fields to prevent waste from entering the natural waters, particularly periods of flooding. Where is the display of resources that will sustain the school if the enrollment drops to 10 to 12 people? How will the land be used if the school fails to develop and left in disrepair? Will the facility remain without laborers of students and serve as stewardship a role of agricultural? There's no description of academic requirements for the facility, administration that will provide the well-being for students and people, what academic and curriculum expectations will be required of the school. Through this will not be a public education standards in the Commonwealth of Virginia or Rockbridge County school system, whereas oversight of the church and domination, and how will there be accountability to educate students to be responsible and invest in community service and structures? Where is the demonstration that the students will be protected from serving only as laborers for financial gain for the administration? Where is the role of oversight and accountability? Is there an other model of school / agricultural that this school has employed for education? Is there precedent for model for this program or facility? Therefore, I respectfully ask that the supervisors deny the special exception at this time until St. Dunstan's Academy can provide information on the issues raised. The supervisor will serve the interests of Walker's Creek Magisterial District well if they raise the expectation upon the applicant, address environmental impacts and the academic requirements and the contingency plans for limitation upon enrollment, or if there's a failure to sustain a well-supervised student body, faculty, and administration. Sincerely, John Hoover Hanley. And those are the only written comments I have that went to the citizen comments PC. Again, I did my best to forward all the information to the supervisors in a timely manner, including the petition that was referenced this evening.
Are there any other comments?
No, sir.
All right, is there? Should we take board comments during this time or close the public hearing and then take board comments?
You can go ahead with board comments if you think there's any indication like being interested in continuing public hearing.
Let's go ahead with board comments. Any comments from board members before we close the public hearing?
I'll start, I suppose, or make my comments. I've thought about this a lot, and as it's come along, it's as was noted, there were several planning commission meetings and hearings where it was discussed, and so many of the things that have been discussed, and we do have a recommendation from our planning commission. Of course, I trust them that they're the planners and they know what to do. So that's important to me, that we do have a recommendation. I think about the what else someone else might buy that property and what they might do with it. You know, the example of our community's denial of the Boy Scouts, you know, the national camp that had a chance to come to Goshen. You know, a lot of the arguments are the same. I've seen the new one. My son went there. It's wonderful. You know, I sort of wish, you know, that we'd had that here. I see the mission of St. Dunstan's and the good part of the Boy Scouts to be similar. And I prayed a lot about it, and I think, you know, the mission is just a good thing. And I'd like to be able to support that. I look at the Young Life camp, you know, same kind of issue with remote area, what's going to happen, how's it going to be used, what's it going to do for the community. They've been a great community partner. You know, I think that was a good move. So, you know, so many of the issues that were brought forward are beyond our control. The septic, you know, for instance, is managed by the Virginia Department of Health. You know, they're not going to let something go in there that can't function. So when that plan, if they get the permit, then, you know, that plan will happen there. I was also glad to hear that there was mention of, being a part of the community. So we have to take that on faith. We can't, guarantee any of that, but from my conversations with Mr. Figley and my visits to the site, I also agree. I think it is the fit for it. We look at it from the development perspective of sites or siting of buildings. The buildings will be clustered, as has been mentioned, so that leaves much of the rest of the land open to preserve it. That is the stated mission of St. Dunstan's. Again, none of this can all be guaranteed, but and that's where I just come back to the mission that they're looking to raise up good men and classical curriculum, which I think is a positive thing.
Any other board comments? Questions?
Before you close public hearing, I just looked at my email and I received one late that I could read in.
Yes, sir, please.
This is from Susanna Larner and says, good afternoon. I'm writing to you as an adjacent land. You want time me, Chris?
Yes, sir.
I'm writing to you as an adjacent landowner and taxpayer in the county about St. Dunstan's Academy. I have a couple of concerns that I would like to express to you. We, the members of the Rockridge County Board of Supervisors, envision, this is from your mission, vision, and value statements. We, the members of Rockridge County Board of Supervisors, envision a community defined by first-class educational programs for youth and adults, enhanced through widespread and quality access to broadband connectivity. I'm somewhat curious, particularly as an educator, about how a school which claims to have no interest in internet usage fits in with the stated mission and values of the county. I would also, as an educator, like to know how and why the board is comfortable with a school that requires no accreditation, apparently has little or no oversight, and has many earmarks of a cult style commune. Number two, I'm also concerned about the fact that part of the rites of passage stated in the website of the school could put me in a situation of liability, and says whether finding their way back home through the woods. If they cross into my property and become lost or injured, what guarantee is Rockbridge County going to give me that I will not be sued for damages? There are numerous sinkholes in the terrain, at least one cave that I know of, and plenty of copperheads that could result in injury or worse. In the county's comprehensive plan, the property is situated within a rural area and is established in Chapter 8. The comprehensive plan states, as established in Chapter 9, the comprehensive plan states that rural planning areas should provide a vehicle by which prime agriculture and forestry lands, mountain areas, natural and scenic resources, critical watershed, sensitive environmental areas, and other large tracts of land, rural character within the county may be preserved and maintained. 21 buildings and a road doesn't sound like natural and scenic resources to be protected, much less the critical watershed downstream, which affects my property immediately, and sensitive environmental areas. The sewage alone from this facility has me deeply concerned about a river that has been suffering for years from upstream mismanagement. What would happen to this property in the future if the school's venture fails and there are numerous buildings on it? What guarantee or control will Rockridge County have to keep this from becoming a housing development with a religious exemption? 4, I previously mentioned that I'm a taxpayer. As a religious school or community, what will they be providing monetarily to the county beyond the initial and one-time only payments to someone to build a couple of buildings and a road? The website indicates that students will be crafting new buildings on campus, which would indicate that the hiring of local contractors would end quickly. What kind of taxes would they be expected to pay since they're applying as a religious organization? Thank you for your time. I hope you will consider some of these concerns as you go forward with the decision about whether or not to allow this project to go forward. Sincerely and respectfully, Susanna M. Larner / Janet L. Larner.
there any others that you have? Mr. Suter?
I'm not seeing any. I'm just gonna check. That came in on the citizen comments, which is routed to my email.
All right, if there's no other board comment, we'll close public hearing. That's up for discussion by the board.
Something else I would like to add, I forgot earlier in my missive there, that from an economic, driving perspective, there should be some jobs, for our citizens out of this. I don't think all the employees of the academy would be from elsewhere. I think that's a consideration.
Is there any other board comments?
I would like to respond and just say the Young Life, I don't think the Young Life camp should be used as a comparison. Young Life camp was built from something that was a similar use and historically been used as a tourism, as a people came there. It was not, Young Life did not come in here, and they had a track record throughout the whole country of doing camps. So I don't think it's quite I don't think it's a great comparison to do this with that. And it does not say, it's not a school. Young Life is not a school.
That wasn't the part of the comparison.
Well, correct. But
Traffic, that kind of thing was where I was
yes,
going.
Yes, but this.
And they are a good member of the community. They could have come in and done nothing. So.
Okay.
You've heard the presentation, you've heard the citizen comments, you've heard board comments. Which direction does the board want to go on this?
If there's no other comments, I make a motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion to approve as presented. Is there a second? Not hearing any, that would deem the motion to fail. And by not having a second to approve, that automatically, what step do we need to take at this point?
It does not automatically mean action to deny the project. So that would not be the same motion. A motion to deny could be considered, although the fact that the motion has failed means that the project has not been approved.
So you don't necessarily need a.
You don't necessarily need a denial. It's just an action that would confirm that.
Anyone want to present another motion? If not, we'll deem it as denied at this point. Am I correct in that?
You're correct.
I have one follow-up question. Would this be placed on another agenda based on the board taking action on the land development regulations within 30 days of the public hearing, or how does that tie into this discussion?
The public hearing's been closed, so there wouldn't be that potential unless the board takes action to set it over for further consideration on the denial, on a denial, which is really the only motion that could be made. And in my opinion, it's not necessary under Robert's rules.
Thank you.
Understand it didn't pass, but it didn't fail either.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to answer that
Yes, ma'am,
question for
please.
you?
Please.
Once an application fails, it may be brought back only after a period of 12 months.
But we haven't taken action, right? If no action was taken, is that taking action? You know, I'm agreeing with Mr. Campbell right here. I don't quite know that that means it's denied, as you said.
Well, it is failed and the same motion can't be considered for 12 months. A motion to approve cannot be considered for 12 months. So action could be taken, but it would be to accomplish the same as what has already occurred.
Okay. Yes, sir. We are moving on to Nicholas and Bethany Ioka, 1372 Rafine Road, Rafine, Virginia. Application to amend a condition associated with a previous approved special exception permit for a kennel in an agricultural and general use A2 zoning district. Mr. Slade.
I do not have a formal PowerPoint presentation, but I would like to share my screen. And here. All right, Nicholas and Bethany Ioka have made an application to amend his condition associated with a previously approved special exception permit. The property is located in the agricultural and general use district, A2 zoning district, and is further identified as tax map number 27-A-23C, which I will highlight here. Per section 603.03-5 of the County of Rockbridge Land Development Regulations, a commercial kennel is a use by special exception in the A2 district. The existing special exception and associated conditions were approved by the Board of Supervisors on January 28, 2019 with the following conditions. Again, this was associated with the previously approved special exception process. Number one, breeding of golden retrievers only. Number two, limited to 10 female and 2 male golden retrievers for breeding. Number three, puppies will be kept inside of a dwelling until a permanent enclosed structure can be constructed. And number four, boarding and grooming operations shall be prohibited. Per the written description of plans, the proposed amendment was to the existing special exception was to remove the limit of dogs number associated with the breeding business. On March 9th, 2022, the Planning Commission held its public hearing and recommended the amendment of the existing condition number 2 to state limited to 30 golden retrievers for breeding purposes, including any visiting stud dogs. All other conditions remain in effect. On March 25th, 2022, the Board of Supervisors opened the public hearing for the special exception application. The public hearing was continued until tonight's meeting, April 25th, 2022. The Iokas have a second pending application for a second kennel on another property located at 1492 Rafing Road. The Board of Supervisors postponed taking action on the 1372 Rafing Road in order for both applications, again, 1492 and 1372 Rafing Road, to be heard at the same time. However, at the April 13th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting, Planning Commission postpone taking action on the 1492 Rafine Road application in order for the applicant to further develop a plan for proposed location and details on the structures that could be utilized for breeding and boarding operation. Therefore, the 1492 Rafine Road application will be on the upcoming, and that's the May 11th, 2022 Planning Commission agenda and not on tonight's agenda. This is, of course, a continued public hearing. And so we've advertised and adjoining notices advertised accordingly. With that, I'd like to turn the floor over to Nicholas Ioka with any additional details, go anything I may have missed.
Good evening, everyone. I really don't have any other details to add. Just if you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer to the best of my knowledge.
Does the board have any questions for Mr. Ioka?
I have one. Chris, is there any chance you could pull up the plan from this initially in 2018?
I probably can, but it's gonna take me a few. I could get it off the.
I got it.
Okay, fair enough.
You know, I asked you about this before,
Yes.
and you know, where everything was going to be behind.
Yeah.
And this is where I got that it was.
Sure.
There's a map submitted that show the kennels and they show them back there.
Yes.
They don't show anything up front.
Sure. And that's correct.
So, you know, it's, as you heard through the planning commission process, and you know, as I mentioned before, it's a touchy subject, certainly in that area. So it certainly got me worried about it. But, you know, do you envision the same use as you have now, the out front,
Yes.
you know, continuing
Yes.
and or expanding?
Not expanding, but what I would say that the out front is not kennels. Those are
Runs.
exercise pens.
Yeah.
The kennels are in the rear where that is. So
see, then there's
I
the
guess
rub
it
of the
goes into
expectation.
definition.
Yeah.
It goes into definition. What you define, what I thought was defined as a kennel is in the rear of the property. What is in the side lawn is exercise pens. That's not an actual kennel over there. And so that, I guess it was not defined. I felt in that meeting so that I knew clearly that we were to have no dogs anywhere except for in the rear of the property. If that had been something that had been written down that I would have understood at that time, then we wouldn't have this kind of wonder, I guess, you know, kind of the question. But at that time, I didn't have the.
Well, you know, just from my perspective, a map submitted with that
Yes.
is sort of defined.
Yes, sure.
To me.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I guess it was my, what I think about it, is that was where the kennel was going to be as far as.
And they are.
The majority of the dogs are going to stay, but that, in my mind, it did not quantify that as that's the only spot your dogs could be on the property, as far as you could not have any other kind, because since we have the adjoining properties, and at that time, my parents, my in-laws owned it. Now we own it. At that time, you know, we were going to use that property also as taking walks with the dogs, all that kind of stuff. And so that to limit the dogs just to that one little bit of property would have been something that would have kind of raised concern for us if we'd have known that that was something that was thought of.
Well, that's why I go through this process to try to get things defined.
I understand.
So everybody understands.
Yes.
What's going on.
Any other questions, comments from board members?
I guess I would also say I'm a little uncomfortable with the number, but since I'm apparently support the planning commission, I'm going to go with their number of 30, especially since it's from my research of the breed of golden retrievers. That gives me, you know, some confidence in that number. It just seems like a lot to me.
I understand. Yeah.
But I would like to clarify, of the 30, what does that mean? So is that 30 dogs in total on the property, or is, because, you know, there was talk at the planning commission of the studs coming in, so does that count into the 30 or could you just?
Well, according to, I
refresh me
believe
on
what the
all that?
wording is, that it would, if the studs came in, that would also be included in the 30. So breeding dogs is the key right there. So if there's breeding dogs, it can only be 30 regardless.
So you're saying that you could have 30 breeding dogs and then potentially if you have 6 dogs that have litters of puppies, an additional number of puppies?
Oh, puppies, yes, because that's the product of the breeding. Yes, as it has nothing to do.
That doesn't account into
Not
the
the
30.
puppies. No, these are breeding adult dogs that are approved OFA, all the heart, the eyes, everything, so that they can be breeding dogs. Puppies are not approved by OFA or certified in any regard. They are the product of the breeding of good genetics and bloodline, and it's the breeding adult dogs that are actually used for breeding that would be included in the 30.
So, I mean, you have 2 litters of 6, so you could have 42.
Yes.
Total dogs.
Yes, absolutely.
Probably have more.
But that's
than that,
total
because
dogs.
I would imagine you're breeding.
dogs too.
Oh, absolutely. We
And how
have to
many-
have non-breeding dogs.
You have adolescents that are
You have to,
growing up.
yes, because you have to be able to replace, and you have to own dogs that are going to be then certified when they are 2 years old to replace dogs that have been in your breeding program. It's a yes.
I can't see it on 1.47 acres. I just can't. I'm having a really difficult time with the amount of dogs in this small space.
So not counting puppies,
Yes.
about how many total dogs would you estimate you'd have?
So
at any given
total dogs
Right.
without puppies,
Right.
we have to replace that. Our plan is that we need to replace about 4 dogs per year.
Right.
So there is going to be an additional 4 dogs on top of that 30, somewhere around that. Not always, but that is our plan of how we have to turn it over. So it's around 35 dogs, I would say.
And of course, also possibly dogs that have not yet been placed out of your breeding program. So you're going to have.
Well, yeah,
dogs
but that would
coming
be-
in And dogs coming out.
That would be included in the 30 though, because when they are no longer in our breeding program, they are either sold for very low cost or they're given away. Most of them are just given away. And so we have a list of people waiting for those dogs. It's amazing how many people, they don't want to deal with a puppy. And so they say, do you have an adult dog? And we say, well, we don't have an adult dog now, but if you want to get on our list, we will contact you when we do have an adult dog ready. And so that's how it works. People from all over the East Coast, they wait for our dogs.
Any other comments, board questions? All right, let's open up the public hearing. Anyone signed up to speak?
No, sir. No one signed up to speak.
Public hearings already.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is continuation, right?
This is a
Continued public hearing?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
All right, so continued public hearing.
Since we're in a continued public hearing, can we take comments?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Anybody signed up?
No one's signed up to speak.
No one's online.
No one online. Any written comments?
I do have a written comment. Yes.
Go ahead.
This is from Thomas Bundy. This is from Sunday, April 24th, last night or yesterday evening. I see the IOCA's requested to increase the number of dogs they can have on the property is coming before the board of supervisors again tomorrow night. As far as I can see, the situation has not changed from the comments I've made earlier. Therefore, I would like to resubmit the comments, the same comments again. Please let me know if I'm wrong. Also, because of the number of animals they have and sell interstate, they are required to have a license under the Animal Welfare Act from the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services, and we'll go ahead and start timing myself, sorry, of the USDA. I've seen nothing to indicate that they have such license. To get that license, they would be required to provide basic health-related space and handling requirements for all of their dogs. It's not clear that they can do so on this small piece of property that is under 2 acres by their own admission. Please provide these comments to the Board of Supervisors. And very briefly, since he requested, I'll go ahead and we're still within two minutes.
I'll go ahead and read the original comment that was of course made of record last month. It should be remembered that the special exception permit only applies to 1.47 acres. While there's a discussion about other properties the Iokas own around the property in question, there's nothing in the permit that states the special exception is contingent upon the continuation of the existing, the current situation. Therefore, it'd be possible for the 1.47 acres to be sold with a permit for 30 dogs. Other properties could be sold or put in other uses with a special exception for up to 30 dogs applying to less than 1.5 acres. I don't think anyone would want to see either of these outcomes. Well, I have no reason to believe that the applicants would do either of these things, but the permit as written does not expire if the current situation changes. The permit runs with the land and land applies to whomever owns the land. Therefore, I recommend the permit be limited to the current situation of the applicants with the surrounding properties in aggregate. In addition, I would like to see a provision added that would require periodic public review of the conditions for the lifespan of the special exception permit. I suggest that such review should occur every 3 to 5 years. Thank you for your kind consideration of these comments. Sincerely, Thomas Bundy, Bundy, South River Magisterial District.
Is there any other written comments or anything to come in? No, sir. Okay. So at this point, since we had a continuation of public hearing, we would need to close the public hearing.
Before you do that, Chris, can you go back to that email? What I was talking about a special license?
Yeah, so it's
Accurate or true or
so based on my research, it says that the comment is also because of the number of animals they have and sell interstate, they're required to have a license under the Animal Welfare Act from the Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service of the United States Department of Agriculture. So my response to Mr. Bundy this afternoon, and this is very basic research that I did not even do today. It was previously based on a similar conversation. And again, this is preliminary. We can verify this, but per the animal, my response to him is per the Animal Welfare Act. I previously researched that, and it appears it pertains to wholesale breeders that supply dogs to pet stores or research facilities. In this case, the breeder sells directly to the public. Therefore, I do not think that they're required to have the same permit inspections from the USDA. And I don't know if you, Nicholas, if you had anything to add on that, or
I have
heard of
never
that.
heard of such a thing with any breeder or breeders that we've dealt with that are doing the same thing we've been doing as far as having high quality dogs. The only thing I will say is that AKC from time to time will come out to specific breeders and will make sure that everything is up to their level of inspection. There's certain requirements as far as having to have water within such an amount of space from the puppies and that kind of stuff, a way to wash utensils, that kind of thing. And so AKC kind of keeps up with those who are underneath in the registration to make sure that these breeders really are good breeders.
Have they ever come out?
They have not, and we actually wonder why they have not. We have a lot of our friends who are, not a lot of them, but we have a few friends who are in the business in different parts of the East Coast, and they have inspected their place, and we actually wonder why AKC has not. But if they do, we have no worries whatsoever. We know that. In fact, we kind of wish that AKC would inspect us, because that would just push us up a notch again, because we feel very confident. Our facilities are the same as other breeders that we know, and they were inspected and it was all good. So we know that we would too. So we'd kind of like it if AKC would recognize us and come out and check us out. So, but right now they have not.
One of the other issues, now you own additional acreage.
That's correct. Yes.
But you have no plans to use that acreage for this operation, correct?
For a breeding kennel? No, not at all. No, and not at this point. I mean, it's agriculture.
And I will add, with Mr. Bundy's comment, it says, therefore, I recommend the permit be limited to the current situation of the applicants with their surrounding properties in aggregate. The first thing on that one, and piggybacking off of Chairman McDaniel's conversation or discussion there, this special exception is unique to this particular tax parcel. And so we would not have, without re-advertising, we would not have the ability to include other tax parcel, other acreage associated with it. And same would be true with the dog breeding business. They would not have the ability to expand on the other properties without amending the existing special exception. The second fold of the second point of his discussion, in addition, I'd like to see a provision added that would require the periodic public review of the conditions. I suggest a review period of every 3 to 5 years. And we've had we've had some discussion on that, and we, the Office of Community Development, and I think Ms. Huffman would agree that we don't think we have that authority to require those periodic reviews of special exception permits under our current ordinance.
If I could make one comment too, there's been no bad, what's the word am I looking for? As far as negative feedback from my neighbors to me, that are any of the adjoining folks. We are right in the backyard, basically, of the development, the Ridgemore development. I know quite a few folks in there. They have said nothing but positive things about our dogs since we've been there. And when we moved here, we were allowed to have what we have now, the 12 dogs. And when we've come back now 3 years later with only good feedback from our neighbors, the people who are there 24/7, and then none of them have even stepped forward. They know just as well as everybody else about what we've asked, and they have no concerns because they have not voiced them whatsoever. And so, we feel like in good faith, we aren't just like showing up on the scene and saying, hey, we would like 35 dogs. And you don't have any track record with us at all. In fact, you do have a track record, and you do have our neighbors that they did have concerns when we were first starting. They voiced those concerns, and since then they have, when we've now had the signs up and everything, nobody has said a thing about it. So I think that, not to pat myself on the back or my wife for being such a good dog breeder, but it speaks to the type of facilities and what we are doing there at our place, that it does not create a nuisance to the neighbors at all. And that is our plan 100%, that it will continue to not be a nuisance to the neighbors.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. All right, we will close the public hearing at this point. Any board discussion? Ms. Huffman, a question that I have, and I'm not sure with the way the application was drawn and what I've heard here tonight. I guess I have some concerns about the number of dogs. With what was submitted and what's being asked for, could you amend to say the number of total dogs, not including puppies, but just total dogs? I mean, because as they take dogs out of service and before they can release them, I mean, that would count in the number or not?
I mean, you can amend it that way. It is harder to describe, though. So you could modify condition number 2 to provide for limited to whatever the total golden retrievers, excluding puppies.
I think that's what the breeding, to correct me if I'm wrong, the breeding the ones coming into the program, the adolescents and the ones going out, even if they're only with you for a year or two, they are out, they're not considered breeding anymore. Adolescents are too young. Typically, you would be having your dogs fixed before you're moving them on, I would assume.
Right.
Correct. So they're not a breeding animal anymore. So I think that's already done currently. And the puppies aren't counted too.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood the question. I thought he was asking if you could establish a total number of dogs that included these non-breeding dogs as well as the
I'm
breeding
sorry, I
dogs.
apologize.
That's what I was asking.
misunderstood.
And I'm just simple minded. It's easier for me to count dogs than it is which ones are breeding, which ones aren't, and miscommunication as it might have been previously. So you've heard the comments. And any other questions? There's a motion.
Mr. Chair, did you have a number in mind other than 30?
I hate to. I'm not a breeder. So I mean, I don't know the services. I understand what Mr. Ioka has presented here. It's just, as Mr. Lewis brought up earlier in the discussion, there might have been some confusion previously. Again, just my simple mind, it's easier for me to count dogs. There's 30 dogs there, or which ones are breeding, which ones aren't, which ones, are moving on. So, I don't know that on the 1.5 acres, how 30 dogs work either, not including puppies. But if it was a total of 30, then that'd be a little easier for me to understand. And I don't know the 30 is an accurate number. And I certainly understand what you're saying about breeding the dogs. I can also see a neighbor getting upset, mad, coming in here saying, well, you said they could only have 30 dogs. They got 37 there. Well, and then we have to try to explain why the 7 don't count in the number. So is there a motion?
Yeah, I want to support the planning commission and business. So I as I said, initially had some qualms about those numbers, but in delving a little farther for this breed, I've been assured that this can work. And Mr. Ioka is, as he pointed out, has track record with us, despite my misunderstanding his initial sketch. So I move that we approve as presented by the plan.
As presented. Sure. Second to that?
Second.
All right, Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Ms. Ayers.
Sorry, no.
Mr. Day.
No.
Is it so is it possible? Should I ask Mr. Lewis if he would be willing to amend his motion for the total number of dogs?
You can certainly ask, yes.
I would if there's a number presented, and if are we allowed to inquire at this stage of the applicants anything further?
I think that's the chairman's call, whether or not he.
I think it's board
wants to
discussion
allow
at this point. And my concern again is just the total number of dogs and whether they're breeding or not breeding or whatnot. If your research and the planning commission says 30 dogs, I would like just to state that it's total of 30 dogs, whether they're breeding, non-breeding, whatnot on the property. Would you be willing to amend to that?
Can I ask Chris a question?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm willing to amend. I want to come to some agreement. Would be frustrated that we're not following the planning commission, but okay, again, what does it read right now?
Current motion, I'm sorry, current language associated with condition number 2 is limited to 30 golden retrievers for breeding purposes, comma, including any visiting stud dogs.
So what I'm asking, if you're willing to amend, is just take the breeding piece out of it. It's 30 total dogs.
It would be excluding puppies.
Excluding puppies.
Okay, I just want to clarify that.
You will have to clarify the age of the puppy because a puppy is a puppy through adolescence. So just.
Are they a puppy until they are no longer nursing, or is there an age?
Well, typically you release your puppies at what time? At probably 8 or 9 weeks.
8 weeks.
8 weeks. So, puppies are going to move on, or they're going to be kept by 8 or 9, or,
They're considered a puppy up until they're about a year old.
right. But you're not keeping them for a year unless you're keeping them.
Exactly.
Right.
yes.
So you're going to move them on in
8 weeks.
by 8 weeks and
That's
10
typical.
weeks, 12 weeks to be comfortable.
Yes.
So if David, if I amend, so number 2 says currently says limited to 30 golden retrievers for breeding purposes. If we remove the for breeding purposes.
And then you would add excluding puppies, and I would be willing to say up to 16 weeks of age, which would give them a little room to get rid of the puppies. Would you?
Yeah, as long as we're sure that 16 weeks is enough time.
He just said it was
Yeah,
8 or 9 weeks was enough time.
I'm giving double what he has.
I hate the restrictions, but I get what you're saying. So yes, I'll if that gets us support for the applicant, yes.
So the amended motion is, as you've heard, removing the breeding 30 total dogs except for puppies, which we would consider puppies in this instance up to 16 weeks of age. Would you second that amendment, Mr. Lyons?
Yeah, I would just say 30 golden retrievers above the age of 24 weeks. Is that what you said? 16 weeks to make it simple. Can you live with it?
For questions for that, but that leaves a lot of things open for what ifs. But
Well, give us an example.
what if, let's say, we could not sell a puppy and we had 31? What would we do with that puppy?
I understand Dr. Lyons' suggestion to clean it up, but maybe can we just leave the puppies in there, excluding the 16?
If it was beyond the 16 weeks, I'm sorry. If it was 17 weeks old and we had 30 dogs and this then was 17-week-old puppy and now it made 31, what would we do with that puppy if we did not have it sold? I'm just saying, what if we did not get rid of all the puppies or sell them all at that time? We'd then be in violation. But what would we do with one of our dogs?
Right, but what then could happen is that you could be then keeping 30 plus any that you might theoretically be keeping on. And so that, from our point of view, that could be a limitless number of dogs. Not that you would, I'm just saying, you see our.
Yes, I understand exactly what you're saying. I see it from, like I said, that we have, how to keep the 30, we need about 4 dogs to be able to replace, because we keep our females between 6 and 7 years. And so we need to have 4 dogs pretty well to come back and a male. So we'd have to have about 5 to replace that. So 35 breeding dogs, then 35 dogs total. I could say, well, yeah, that's totally what we'd be doing anyways.
So, but maybe what we're saying is that on 1.5 acres, maybe you have to account for, maybe you have a couple of puppies left over that you don't sell, that you only have 25 breeding dogs. How many breeding dogs is not what we're.
Right. Yes.
We're talking total dogs, total impact, because the neighbors and keep in mind, thank you for not getting along with your neighbors and that's great, but you're asking for 3 times the current amount of dogs that you have now. And that to me is a huge jump.
Actually, just barely double, because we have breeding dogs now. We have 12 breeding dogs, but that does not mean that's the total amount of dogs we have. We have over 20 dogs right now.
Okay. And so, but then the agreement says 30 total dogs.
That's what you're gonna amend or hope maybe
Okay, so
possibly
you're
amend.
more than twice the number
yes.
of the impact.
So
on
right
your
now we
neighbors.
have 22 dogs, but we only can breed 12 of them. Those are our breeding dogs. The other ones are either too young or they haven't had their testing and all that kind, and we'll see if they pass and then they go on. So, but yes.
You know, in my thought, you have to control your numbers.
Yes.
The 30 dogs is what we're saying you're allowed to have.
I understand.
Okay. All right, so we have amended motion.
Excluding puppies?
Excluding puppies.
16 weeks.
16 weeks. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with the second?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay, so on the amended motion, Mr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mr. Lyons? Ms. Ayers?
I'm sorry, no.
Mr. Day?
Yes.
Chair votes yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we have CNS Disposal, 153 Sherwood Lane, Natural Station, Virginia. Application to amend special exception permit, junk storage and automobile salvage yard in the general industrial I-1 zoning district. Mr. Slayton?
Yes, if bear with me here, I do have a map that I'd like to share on the property. All right. Mr. Steve Flint with CNS Disposal has made an application to amend the existing special exception permit in order a permit to operate a scrap metal yard in the industrial zoning district. That's the general industrial zoning. The property is identified as 153 Sherwood Lane, Natural Bridge, Virginia, and is owned by Flint Ridge Properties LLC. The property is located on the north side of Walk Faulkner Highway 130, approximately 450 feet west of the intersection of Lloyd Tolley Road and Walk Faulkner. Further identified as tax map numbers 113 E2-2, 113 E2-3-2 through 10 and 113 E2-3-3-A and B. The original special exception was approved on February 26, 2018, and included the condition that the primary storage for the scrap metal be inside a building. The application includes removing this condition and also includes addition of salvaging machinery or vehicles. Per section 607.03-7 of the regulations, junk storage and automobile graveyard / holding yard / salvage yards are used by special exception in industrial zoning district. Again, I-1. The application is for a junk storage and automobile salvage yard, which is 5 vehicles or less. and the property is located in Natural Bridge Magisterial District. On April 13th, 2022, the Planning Commission has held its public hearing and has recommended amendment of the existing special exception with the following conditions. Number one, the development of the property, and it goes on to say the tax maps, which I won't reiterate, for which the application is being made shall be in substantial accordance with the development plan titled Flint Ridge Properties dated March 13th, 2022. And that is this schematic plan on the screen. Number two, no more than 5 inoperable motor vehicles. And number three, approval subject to all state, federal, local regulations pertaining to junk storage, salvage yard. With that, I can keep this up for display purposes. I'd like to turn the floor over to Mr. Steve Flint to review the details of the project and answer any questions that the board may have.
I'm Steve Flint. Appreciate your time this evening. Chris has pretty well gone over what we're looking to do. At this time, our primary storage area is restricted to inside. We are taking in a volume now that it's difficult to do that. I've got machinery that will not fit in the building that we need to operate outside to continue. That's pretty much what I'm after. Equipment, maybe a vehicle or two, it's hard to say. We're looking to recover fluids. We use waste oil burners to heat our facilities. I'm open to any questions or comments you may have.
Is there any questions, comments from the board?
So this is good, Steve. I mean, this is a business driver driving this request, right? I mean, you're able to collect recyclables and
looking to expand
and transfer them to the next stop.
Yes.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Steve. All right, is anyone signed up to speak? We'll open up public hearing.
There's no one signed up to speak on the paper.
Okay. Anybody online wishing to address the board?
Doesn't appear to.
All right, any emails?
No,
written?
sir. We do
All right.
not have a written comment.
Is there any board comments during the public hearing?
Stop sharing this. So
At this point, then we will close the public hearing. I'd like to start off by just saying that Mr. Flint and CNS Disposal has been a good neighbor in the community, has been a good business practice in the community. What they've done with the sawmill is a good use of the facility. I don't believe that, even though he's asking to take the material from inside a building to outside, I just don't believe there will be any way for, if you look at the map, the surrounding area, there won't be any eyes to be able to look on that. It's a good use of the property, and I fully support it as the representative of that district. So having said that, is it a motion to move to approve?
Second.
Do you have any discussion? Anything?
No.
All right. So we have Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis. Aye. Mr. Day.
Yes.
Ms. Ayer.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes. All right, so we have, is there any board comment, any members have any comments? Public hearing tomorrow at 6 o'clock for the FY 2023 budget and code of amendment to establish separate classification of personal property for certain vehicles. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And second?
Second.
Mr. Day. All right, Mr. Day.
Yes.
Mr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Ayers.
Yes.
Mr. Lyons.
Yes.
And Chair votes yes.
Do they?